Good morning and welcome to our May edition of Late Start EL or Multilingual Paraeducator Training. Um, I have been following under the guidance of our Paraeducator Board and the components that they have laid out. And we've gone through cultural competence and communicating with culturally and linguistically diverse students and families, um, foundations for language acquisition, ELL instruction and strategies. And since we're towards the end of our trainings, I just am going to do a little bit of review, but with new information. So hopefully you will find some useful tools throughout today's training. And I also use this document to kind of guide me. This is put out by the Paraeducator Board, and these are the standards and the standards that hopefully you feel you have met and I feel I have facilitated to you are supporting educational outcomes and knowledge and awareness of academic language and acquisition. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today and do a little activity to give you an understanding how some of our students feel as they come to a new country and a new language, demonstrate professionalism and ethical practices. I feel, of course, you are very professional in your practice, but we just want to make sure that we are going over other competencies that are embedded within that. Support a positive and safe learning environment. Of course, we are student-centered in everything that we do. We are doing for our students and positive outcomes. Communicate effectively and participate in the team process. As you know, in education, we do not get to be out on our own island. We collaborate and we work together. And that's what really makes my job so exciting and rewarding is I get to work with others, and I hope you feel that way too. And you can communicate your needs as well as your students' needs, and are communicating also in a way that is professional and respectful, right? And demonstrate cultural competency. And today I'm going to talk about going to that next level and aiming for cultural proficiency. Okay. First thing I want to talk about is language. So as we continue to evolve and learn to be culturally proficient educators, we're going to review what we've learned throughout your training. And as I said, we're going to review a little bit about language acquisition. Language acquisition is not the same for everyone, and it does not follow a linear path. And as an adult, I can tell you I can understand a lot of Spanish. I took Spanish in high school, and that was many, many years ago. However, as far as speaking it, I am not confident in my abilities. And also, I've been trying to learn it using like Duolingo, and my my acquisition of Spanish has not been linear. Like I'll do really, really, really good, and then I'm like, I circle back, right? If I don't practice, of course, then I am totally back where I started, or I might progress a little bit more the next time. That's how it is for our students. So language proficiency in speaking, reading, listening, and writing a new language, it fluctuates. And we don't expect that all students are going to progress the same. There are many reasons why a student might progress at a different rate than another student. And some of those reasons are um, their background knowledge, their lived experiences, their motivation and desire, and their cognitive load. If we have students who come to us from another country and it's very overwhelming for them because they're in a new country, a new culture, a new school, making new friends, um, your effective filter, which is that filter that tells your brain, okay, I've had enough, and anything else that you're giving me, I'm just not absorbing at this moment. I have to do something with all this stress that I have or that I perceive that I'm under before I can learn anything else. And our students who are there with a full cognitive load um, may need some extra support. And we as educators have to figure out, okay, what's a new strategy that we can use to help them get to the next level of language acquisition. And our ultimate goal is English proficiency while holding on to their home language, which is so important. As I've said in previous trainings, we want to make sure that we honor their home language. Some instances, we incorporate their home language within what they're doing in the classroom. Perhaps you're doing some writing and you allow them, or I say allow, but you have them write in their home language, and then we can translate it into English, especially for our newcomers. For students who have been here a long time, that scaffold isn't most likely needed, but we have to determine what scaffolds and supports we use. And I think I've shown you the graphic here on the left before, the powerful gift of bilingualism or multilingualism and what it does for our students and their families. It connects them to their families. A lot of times our students, adults in their lives, grandmas, grandpas, mom and dads, aunties, uncles, they speak a language other than English, and the student speaking that language at home is so important so that they can have those meaningful conversations. They can pass down recipes and stories and just different family ideals that if they didn't have both languages, they wouldn't be able to do, and that would be lost. Promotes creativity, increases focus, activates multitasking. It promotes brain health. And then the graphic over here, benefits of a bilingual brain, goes into a little deeper, and you guys can look at this, but it talks about all the benefits on the brain. One that I found very interesting is that it's really good for a mental health. A multilingual brain is quicker, nimble, and more resistant to Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. And I found that very interesting. But I know a mind that is making connections and thinking and learning, it does help prevent illnesses of the brain. So it's important, right? Okay. All right. So you are now going to be a student. This lesson is a Mandarin Chinese lesson, I will tell you that. This is from my PSYOP training, and there's a graphic organizer that goes with it. There's actually two graphic organizers, and there's two videos. So one graphic organizer per video. So you're going to open the graphic organizer first. Okay. And I think, whoops, if you double click it, let me close this one. Yeah. It's going to ask you to make a copy, and you're going to make a copy. And I've probably made a million copies on my Google Drive, but that's okay. So you are going to have these two documents, and for the video that you're going to watch, you'll want this document first. So you'll watch the first video, and the idea is that you try and match these words under the correct column. And as you click, you'll be able to see the next words that are underneath, and you just put them where you want them to go. Okay? All right. So that's after you watch the video, because you wouldn't be able to put these underneath without watching the video. So you're going to move them back. Okay. All right. Then we're going to go back here. And you are, I've said, go to this slide, and you're going to watch this video.
你们好，今天我们来学习食品和健康。首先，我们来看一下猴子和熊猫的饮食。猴子很瘦，猴子很健康。猴子吃健康食品，猴子吃苹果，猴子吃胡萝卜，猴子吃米饭，猴子喝果汁。猴子很健康，熊猫吃不健康食品，熊猫吃炸鸡腿，熊猫吃薯条，熊猫吃巧克力，熊猫喝可乐，熊猫不健康。谁的食品更健康？猴子还是熊猫？接下来我们要把食品分类，分成健康食品和不健康食品。薯条，薯条是不健康食品，我们把它放在这里。苹果，苹果是健康食品，我们把它放在这里。好，接下来请大家把食品分类，谢谢。
Okay, so now if you'll go to your graphic organizer that you made a copy of and put the words under each column or where you feel they go. Okay. Now, let's watch this next video, but we'll actually go here first. Video lesson in Mandarin Chinese. This is video 2. And again, we are going to open this graphic organizer. So you make a copy of this one. Okay. And this one looks a little different. There are pictures. There are words in Mandarin Chinese. There's a monkey, the panda, and then there are pictures below. And again, in this graphic organizer, as you click, the next picture is at the bottom. So you can click and put them in the correct column in the graphic organizer. After you watch the video, or if you pause and you do it during the video, that's up to you. Okay? All right, so I'm gonna go back. And we're going to go to video number 2 and watch video number 2.
你们好，这节课我们来学习食品和健康。首先，我们来看一下猴子和熊猫的饮食。猴子吃健康食品，猴子很健康，猴子每天跑步，猴子可以举重，猴子很开心地读书，因为猴子吃健康食品。苹果吃，猴子吃苹果，猴子吃苹果。胡萝卜吃，猴子吃胡萝卜，猴子吃胡萝卜。米饭，猴子吃米饭，猴子吃米饭。果汁，喝，猴子喝果汁，猴子喝果汁。猴子吃健康食品，猴子很健康，猴子每天很有劲，猴子每天很开心。熊猫吃不健康食品，熊猫每天都很累，每天都想睡觉。熊猫吃不健康食品。炸鸡腿，熊猫吃炸鸡腿，熊猫吃炸鸡腿。薯条，吃，熊猫吃薯条，熊猫吃薯条。巧克力，熊猫吃巧克力，熊猫吃巧克力。可乐，喝，熊猫喝可乐，熊猫喝可乐。熊猫吃不健康食品，熊猫每天都很累，每天就想睡觉。谁的食品更健康？猴子还是熊猫？接下来我们来做食品分类。我们有一些食品，现在我们要把它们分类。薯条是不健康食品，熊猫吃不健康食品，所以我们把薯条切在不健康食品这里。苹果，猴子吃健康食品，猴子吃健康食品。我们把苹果放在健康食品这一栏。好，接下来请大家把食品分类，你们来把食品分类。好，谢谢。
Okay, so you as the student go back to the graphic organizer number 2 and you are going to put the words here with pictures underneath which animal they go to. So you decide which one goes where. Okay. All right. Now, hopefully you noticed, same lesson, however, totally different understanding happening for me at each video and graphic organizer. When I did this in my training, the first one I felt very confused, and I was trying to understand what the teacher was saying. However, I felt like she was just talking at me, and I had very little to go on, right? Now, in the second one, what did you notice? There are some questions here that I want you to ask yourself. How much of the lesson did you understand? How did the instructor make comprehension challenging? And how did the instructor make the comprehension comprehensible? So my thought is perhaps this teacher did the first lesson with their class. And this could be a lesson that maybe she did with native Chinese speakers. They all spoke Chinese, but that first lesson where she was just talking at them, perhaps they didn't understand. And then she redid the lesson. And what did she do differently the second time? And that's something to remember. Yes, this training is for your EL certificate, but for all learners, what did she do here to help us make the learning more comprehensible? And of course, I'm sure you're all saying pictures, right? And she had visual representation in the video of the animals and realia in the front of the class, in that she had the apples and the chocolate and the pop and the orange juice. She had visual, and she held it up and she said the word for them. And then her graphic organizer in this one has the pictures, and we know that she was saying that the panda bear liked to sleep. He was not, or panda, he's not bear, right? He's not active, but she showed us that the monkey, I assume, is making healthy choices from the actions that she made and the foods that she showed us that he would eat. The apple, probably have some rice, and the orange juice, and the carrots, right? All these good things. And I'm thinking this is sushi, which might be under the healthy side too. So again, just thinking about in your everyday happenings and encounters with students, how you go about teaching something to them. If you're talking at them, are they really understanding? Or if you make the choice to have visual representation, does that make it more comprehensible, right? Even if wherever you're working, whether it be in the office or pulling kids aside, you deal with students on a everyday basis, and you might have to have visual representation so they understand what you're saying. Or if you have a new student that comes and you're trying to tell them, well, your first class is over there in room 235, and then you're going to go to your next class. Well, that's probably not very helpful for your student. Not as helpful as if you took the time to walk them to each class, tell them the best route to get there, maybe even assign a student to aid them getting to where they're going. So thinking about how can I give comprehensible input to students. All right, moving on. these are the questions again. I just want you to think about the differences between two lessons and how you would feel if you were a student in China and you sat down in a class and your teacher just taught the way the first video was. Like, how would you feel? I know for me, when I first watched that, I thought, oh my gosh, am I going to be graded on this in this training or what? My cognitive load, my affective filter, was getting full because I'm like, I don't know Chinese and this is difficult and I don't even know what they're saying. So please think about that when you're dealing with students and working with our students, that they might be feeling that same way that you did. And I have this little quote here. If my students can't learn the way that I teach, how can I teach in the way they learn? And this is by a teacher, Caleb Gatineau. And you can press this link here and find out a little bit more about him. He was a teacher and he wanted to make sure that learning was accessible to all learners. And if something didn't work, how could he change it? Okay. So remember the struggle and make it comprehensible. So again, just as you might have felt lost or a struggle during that Mandarin lesson, our students may feel the same, as I said. If we make the lesson comprehensible by using speech appropriate for students' proficiency level, explain academic tasks clearly, and use a variety of techniques to make concepts clear, we can increase the learning and make lessons comprehensible. And one thing I want to review is we are using the WIDA standards. This year we did the WIDA access test for our students, and new students that come in take the WIDA screener. And this interpretive guide is a great resource for you. And it shows, let's get there. Students, if you know their proficiency level, and if you're working with students, hopefully that is shared with you. But if I have a student that I'm working with in grades 1 through 12, and I know they're a level 3 in listening, these are some things that they could possibly do. Connect spoken ideas to their experiences, find, select, and order information from oral descriptions. They can identify cause and effect of events, classify pros and cons. So this goes through each domain in speaking. Let's say they're a level 1. What are some things I can expect that they can do? They can name familiar objects, people, and pictures. Show how to solve problems using words and gestures. Express personal preferences. So these are things, if they were a level 1, that we could expect. And it goes through all domains. And then it also lists kindergarten separately for each level. So 1 is our entering kids, and 6 is bridging those that are proficient. Okay. So this is just a good quick guide for you. But also, as I said, PSYOP is where the videos came from. I went through their training, and what I'm talking about is making learning comprehensible. And they have features. They have 8 components and 30 features to PSYOP, but under comprehensible input, if you click these links, it will take you to some ideas that you can use with students. As I said, making speech appropriate for students' proficiency level, explaining tasks clearly, using a variety of techniques to make concepts clear, like we saw in that second video. Okay. One thing I do want to show you is that these are just some ideas for scaffolding for your students. And please remember, There might be times where you don't have to scaffold material. We don't want to scaffold so much that our students are not having productive struggle. We do want our students to have productive struggle and have access to the grade level content, because they're going to have to take state tests or other tests where grade level content is used. But we may, knowing our students' proficiency levels, we may have to scaffold at first to help them access that content through graphic organizers, modeling and gestures, visuals and realia, these kind of things. And then slowly, as just as if you were building a building, there's scaffolds, and slowly those scaffolds come down as the building is finished being built. And that's what we want for our students. So I just added this note here that a productive struggle is important. We want them to think about things and try new concepts. But then if we need to, by observing them, then we can add the scaffolded support. Or if we know we have a brand new student, of course, we are going to do a lot of these things here first. But we want to increase their intellectual capabilities and their academic mindset as well. Okay? All right. So as I said, we hopefully are going to become culturally proficient. However, I feel as an educator, I'm not proficient yet, and I'm constantly learning every single day, or questioning what I've done, making changes. So there's an article that I'm going to have you read. You will click this link, and in order to be agents of change, we must acknowledge the barriers to making the changes. So for the last activity, you're going to read page 51 to 53 about the barriers to cultural proficiency, as this is important to our work with multilingual students. Then, as we continue to be agents of change, please read cultural assets on page 54, as well as the essential elements of culturally proficient practices on the bottom of page 54. So I do want to show you what you'll be reading. So you'll click here. Okay. And you can read the whole thing if you'd like. However, I've cut it down. I want you to read right here where it's barriers versus cultural assets. So you're going to read the barriers. You can look at the graphic, because as we tell students, it's always important to look at graphics, right? Because there may be some really important information. It continues here at the bottom of this page. And then it stops right here on page 53 before you get to this part, okay? And then I asked you to, on 54, the essential elements for culturally proficient practices. So right here in the tan color, I'd like you to also read that, okay, about the different elements to cultural proficiency. All right. And then after you read that, I want you to look at this graphic about cultural destructiveness, cultural incapacity, cultural blindness, cultural pre-competence, cultural competence, and cultural proficiency. As you see here in this graphic, this continuum sometimes goes both ways, right? Sometimes there might be different things that we're competent in and others that we might not. But I want you to read through what each means. Okay, cultural destructiveness means that you are seeking to eliminate the cultures of others in all aspects of school and in relationship to the community served. So you see other people's differences, but you don't want to see them and you want to stomp them out. Like, we don't want to include anybody else's view. And then cultural blindness, we see the difference and we act like we don't. Up to cultural competence, we see the difference and we value the difference. We value our students coming, no matter where they're coming from. Okay. So next, we are going to look at okay, so after you've read through that article and looked at that graphic, I have a Quizlet for you to play today to review what you just read in the article and saw on the graphic. I included the terms from that graphic on slide, I guess it's not slide 11 anymore, is it? Slide 12. I kind of moved things around. So on slide 12. Quizlet is a great low-stress instructional tool that students can use independently to memorize vocabulary and study for tests. There are different game formats from which students can choose to engage with. For example, flashcards and matching. There's also a live game option. And some of you may have seen this in classes before, where students can collaborate and compete in class with each other to learn material. So just another tool or strategy for making learning fun. Okay, so you're going to open up Quizlet by clicking on that link. And I don't know if you have, I don't believe you have to create an account. I think it should just open like this. And there are flashcards that the terms from that chart are on to help you learn. There's also matching. So you can match different words, spelling, writing. So there are different games you can try over here under study. So I made 12 cards, and what I used to make them are I used the title here of each of these: cultural destructiveness, cultural incapacity. So all of these. And then I put the term from here, what they each mean. And then I also made more with these headings. And then I used these sayings that are here as well. Okay, so you've got two different possibilities for each title. Okay, so if you want to play Quizlet for a review, because these terms I will put on the quiz. All right, next. All right, we're going to talk about a scenario and with cultural proficiency in mind. Let's consider this scenario. Ms. R is a fourth grade teacher. It's early December, and Ms. R has brought in books about Christmas and put up some holiday decorations in her classroom for the season. One poster showed different holiday celebrations around the world. Most of the other decorations in the classroom are Christmas related. She also created several worksheets with fun Christmas themes. She loves to tell her students how much she loves Christmas and talks about her own family traditions. In her class, there are 4 students from Vietnam, 1 Russian student, 11 African American students, and 1 from Ethiopia and 2 from India. Okay. With that in mind, I want you to think about these questions. What possible issues or concerns might this scenario raise? 2, in this situation, how might the teacher's decision impact the students, families, the teacher, and the school community? And 3, what response or actions would result in a more positive outcome? And or what can the teacher do to rectify the situation? Okay, again, with our lens of being culturally competent and looking at this scenario, would every student that you come in contact with celebrate Christmas? Or might some of them celebrate other holidays or not celebrate Christmas at all, right? So for question number 1, what concerns might come up within that scenario? And hopefully you're thinking of some, but I also have some possible answers to number 1. Being culturally responsive does not only apply to students who come from diverse backgrounds. Every student comes with their own cultural background. We know this. We know that even our students who grew up in the United States or native English speakers, they all come with a differing cultural background. While students and the teacher may share similar holiday traditions, how much richer would the discussions be if all students had the chance to share their own family traditions and cultures? Students would feel that they were valued and their own stories were appreciated. It would be an opportunity to teach students that everyone is unique in their own way. Excuse me. Ms. R is missing a valuable opportunity to ask questions and be open to hearing stories from her students about their own holiday traditions. This is a perfect opportunity for students to teach one another something in turn. You cannot become culturally competent if you don't learn about other cultures or about one another. Okay. Number 2, the question was, in this situation, how might the teacher's decisions impact the students, families, the teacher, and the school community? Her students' families may feel that their family's religious and or cultural customs and beliefs are not welcomed or respected, especially when students bring home the Christmas-themed worksheets. The Christmas-themed worksheets may create an unequal opportunity for students because the content may be unfamiliar to them. The class may feel that Ms. R does not respect their diverse backgrounds. This can lead to a lack of trust because students and families may interpret her actions as disrespectful and indifferent to their family's heritage. They may feel that she does not value their cultures and are less likely to feel safe in her classroom. Okay. And 3rd, the question was, what responses, actions would result in a more positive outcome, and or what can the teacher do to rectify the situation? Ms. R should celebrate the rich cultures in her class. She needs to develop a learning environment that is relevant to and reflective of her students' social, cultural, and linguistic experiences. The environment should acknowledge, recognize, and celebrate all of her students, regardless of their backgrounds. She could have asked her students to share their backgrounds by creating their own posters or projects reflecting their heritage and customs. She can invite families to share their traditions with the entire class. In the book Dream Keepers, author and researcher Gloria Ladson Billings identifies and discusses 3 dimensions of culturally relevant teaching. Culturally relevant teachers are aware and thoughtful about how they show up in spaces, demonstrate and strive for connectedness with students and families, and cultivate a community of learners based on the premise that knowledge should be a two-way sharing that values diversity and difference by taking them into account. Children process content more effectively when their cultures and languages have places in the curriculum. Ms. R should have integrated the various traditions from all of the diverse cultures in her classroom. As a classroom teacher, I totally know that when I first started my practice of being a teacher, I didn't always consider that maybe everyone did not celebrate the way that I did. And so, of course, as I evolved in my cultural competence, I became very aware and wanted all of my students to feel comfortable. And so loved the dialogue of discussing their traditions and cultures and incorporating them within the class. And I love the idea of inviting families in to share stories. I think that's a great way for students to learn and connect with their cultures. So that's definitely something I would think about as you are working with students. Talking to families, we can learn a lot. So as we wrap up today, I want you to know that I value each and every one of you. And if you have any questions, I sure hope that you will email me. Today, your quiz is going to be over this and the reading. It's a short reading. I did show you that it's not very long, I promise. And on the continuum here. Again, if you want to do the Quizlet, you may, and that will give you some review. But I want you to know where your questions are coming from. And I just hope as you go along with your days that you think about when you're working with students who are multilingual learners, that it's important to remember that we need to make things comprehensible, that we should know that what their proficiency levels are and what we can expect that they can do. However, that WIDA that I showed you, the proficiency level descriptors with what they can do or may be able to do. This is not a set in stone list. So it's important, again, to find out about your students, right, and see what they can do. Please remember that scaffolds and supports are great strategies for helping students access content, but you don't want to leave the scaffolds up forever. And just remember, put yourself in someone else's shoes, just as we were in a student's shoes while we watched the Mandarin video. And I just hope that you continue to learn and become more and more culturally competent as you seek to be culturally proficient. Have an amazing day.